I wanted to talk a little bit about why boundaries are so important and why it's at the heart of absolutely everything I do, both as a social worker, as a business owner, as a mom, and just as a human. So there was definitely a time in which I didn't have clear boundaries. So both in my personal life and my professional life, and I'll talk specifically around what no boundaries for me looks like in my professional life. So I worked in various different government roles for just under 10 years. For anyone who's worked in really busy frontline roles as helping professionals, so whether you've been in government or non-profit, or whether you have your own business, but the sheer, volume of the work that you need to do, it's just never ending. It's relentless. And it's really easy to allow the barriers of the system itself to cause you to almost overcompensate and try to go above and beyond and do such excessive amounts of work far beyond what's actually realistic in a 7.5 hour business day. There's so many parts to your role, and you're working with a really vulnerable client group, and the workload is so excessive. You may also be short-staffed. There may be a lot of those factors that are outside of your control. Things that are outside of your control include the number of vacancies in your team, the lack of funding or funding reductions in your particular program area. You also don't really have any control over the complexity of your clients and your clients' own unique presenting issues. There's so many things in our workplaces as helping professionals that are completely outside of our control, that it doesn't matter how many extra hours you put into your work day, the work is never complete. Overworking, doing, working 10-hour days instead of 7.5, it doesn't fix these issues, because these issues are systemic issues, they're organizational issues. They're not individual issues or factors relating to yourself as a professional. So sometimes when the client caseload that you have, the client's needs are very complex, they have many sort of vulnerabilities that mean that they do create a lot of, that sense of urgency, like I must get these done immediately for this client. I have to try and fix all these systemic issues that the client's trying to navigate. And there's just so many things that, if we had a magic wand in our workplaces, we could say, oh yes, I'll wave my magic wand and fix, all of these things. There'd be no staff vacancies. We would have a full team. I would have a reduced caseload. I would have a caseload of 8 instead of, 16. We would have adequate support from the team manager. There would be sufficient funding in our program area to continue to deliver the best possible programs to your client group. So these are all things, if we had a magic wand, yes, we would make all of these changes. But unfortunately, none of us have that sort of ability. We don't have a magic wand. My sister and I, we always had such vivid imaginations. And we used to think that if we swing high enough on the swing, that we'll then fly up into the air and be amongst the clouds and among the stars, and we'll fly away to somewhere else. We used to also dig holes in our backyard, and we used to say, do you think if we dig far enough, we can actually dig our way to China? We used to have all these kind of wishful sort of miracle thinking, what if? And certainly that kind of wishful thinking, I wish that I would go to work tomorrow and my organization would fill those, 5 vacant positions. Or I wish that I would go to work tomorrow and my team manager will actually really see me for the professional that I am and see all my skills and so on and so forth. Or I wish I could drive to work. There'd be no traffic. I would get there in 20 minutes instead of 55 minutes. For example, these are nice to have. In the ideal world, we could have influence over these factors, but the reality is that we don't. And it doesn't matter how hard we work or how many extra hours we put in or how many days in the week that we avoid taking a lunch break because we're trying to overcompensate because of these stresses and challenges and factors relating to the workplace or the system, we can't actually fix anything. So the reason why I'm speaking about this is because the moment we actually realize I can't control these factors that relate to maybe the client's complexities, their organizational funding issues or staff vacancies. The traffic in the morning is another one, the horrible daily commute. And the thing is, once we acknowledge that these are system issues, so these are specific issues with the system, it is freeing because we will no longer feel inclined to work through lunch, to work an extra hour in the afternoon, because when we acknowledge that there's certain parameters around our work, there's certain things that we have absolutely no control over,